one of the key things that we've got to do is to understand why there's so many of these shell mounds in both Wathayn but also around the mine in general. And one of the key things I think we were thinking, and it's really based on Craig's work, is to understand quite local shifts in the environment, and by that I guess we're meaning really the river system, the coastline, what changes happened that allowed Anadara to grow right adjacent to these areas, because obviously they're collecting just heaps of shell, right?
So should be able to try and get a handle on quite short-term responses to the changes in the resources that are available in this place.
And quite localised ones, right?
Very localised, yeah.
So one of the ideas why we're doing all this excavation is to get that chronology down for the mounds and perhaps compare 2 or 3 areas. And I guess the hypothesis that we're looking at is that those areas will show quite different chronologies from each other.
Because we are able to have quite a detailed chronology in each place, then we're really reducing the time span that we're talking about. We're probably better able to get closer to matching human time frames with the geological time frame or the landscape time frame, get that closer together.
Well, hopefully we can get down to kind of generational level anyway.
Generational level,
well, that's
or a
really,
couple of generations.
Fiona's work with the radiocarbon is to really use some quite powerful statistical analysis, right, to really start reducing it.
So in a landscape like this, it's going to be therefore important to consider as many of these shell mounds as possible to really refine those chronologies.
Yeah, I think that's probably the problem that's happened in the past. People have looked at 1 or 2 of them, but then moved around because there were so many. The tendency is to try and cover all of them. Yeah. But you never really do any place in super detail.
Yeah, and I also wonder about the excavation methods that are previously used as well, in terms of how effective they are for actually understanding the structure of the mounds. Because I think as we're sort of demonstrating here, we've really got to get essentially into the centre of them to learn anything about the structure and the sediment upon which they've been built as well.
And what we're finding, of course, is that the more we open up, the more variable they are, and so it's quite a complex pattern in space and in time.
Yeah, that was a bit surprising, wasn't it? I thought we'd see.
We thought that we'd nailed it last year with our pilot study with just 4.
Yeah,
it's a bit different now.
Yeah. And you look at the morphology of them, I guess there's big ones and little ones and things, right? And so you think, well, there might be a couple of different sorts, but actually we've found almost every one that we've looked at so far it's
essentially different in some way.
Yeah.
So what was that you were going to call yourself? The Mound King?
Oh, yes, I guess, the Mound King, No, but it's quite, I think the other really rewarding thing about the project, right, has been the community involvement.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. I mean, just having their support for what we're doing it's priceless, really. It is.
And I suppose from my perspective, doing this sort of work with the traditional owners enables Rio Tinto through the cultural heritage management system to, I think, employ more traditional owners doing sort of more interesting work rather than just sort of systematic surveys of the bauxite plateau, which essentially recreate the same results survey after survey. This sort of work gives people the opportunity to actually get really heavily involved in doing the archaeology and learning about the sites and also their country. So I think it's
and then of course with the technology that we have, we're able to give them this information in a form that they can use and they can learn from, and the young kids can learn from it and so on, and really get involved in their country and their traditions and all that sort of thing.
Which was kind of the thing that Auntie Beatrice was talking to us about, right, was really getting community engagement, and her concern that some people weren't able to come out the country as often as she'd like. And so if we can engage the communities to give something back, and as you say, we can take the information that we're gaining and really present in a whole lot of different formats, right? We'll get people access.
I mean, there's an overarching interesting story here about development changes to
Yeah, Aboriginal culture.
Aboriginal culture, and also the country, and I think that story really resonates with people because clearly they recognise that the Anadara is no longer available here, and so that there has been a change to the environment, and they're curious about the nature of that change and when it occurred. And
I know when we were digging out these trenches, one of the things that's really surprising for all of us is you go down to the bottom and there's beach sand.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's
it's
it doing there?
Isn't it?
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of the guys that were working with me excavating, we were looking for the beach sand at the bottom, and really commenting on it, and the difference to when you look out onto the mangroves today.
Yep.
Of course, some people have had to do the hard yards up here on the bedrock ridge, digging out the gravel at the base of the pits.
I think I matted out this though, didn't I?
But nevertheless, what's interesting about this is these mounds seem to be spatially located in along these lines or high spots in the topography. Somehow they seem to have attracted the behaviour, and understanding what that is was really exciting.
And I think that'll be a key part of the project. It's not just I guess it's situating in that kind of micro environmental differences between the areas, but really understanding the micro topography of these places and getting an idea of why they've built up this sort of record that they have, because they're quite impressive monuments, really. These shell mounds.
Well, they're very prominent features on the landscape, and there's sorts of things that people have interacted with over time.
Yeah,
in some way. So.
And continue today.
Exactly.
With the community out here. Yeah.